Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Cafe Oleh. My name is Jay. Here at Cafe Oleh with Nefesh B'Nefesh, we go over the everyday Hebrew you need here in Israel to succeed, whether that's reading and paying your bills, going grocery shopping and reading nutritional labels, keeping up with the news, striking up a conversation, flirting, dating, job interviewing, complaining, all the everyday things you do in your native language in your country of origin, but here in Israel in modern Hebrew. As always, we'd like to hear from you what topics you'd like us to cover. You can always be in touch with us by email at hebrew@nbn.org.il. If you're joining us live on Zoom, you can write to us in the chat with any questions, comments, concerns, and most importantly, requests for topics. You can also see all of our previous lessons up on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, type in Cafe Oleh. The very first entry will be a link to our playlist. We have over 150 videos there, lessons, meaning 24,000 plus views, a whole wide array of topics we've already covered. We always want to cover new topics and go over previous ones like we're doing today. So please give us a look over at YouTube and be in touch with us with any further questions you may have. If you're joining us live on Zoom, we ask you if you have any questions about this specific class we're about to start to please write it in the Q&A. Everything else, please lead to the chat, and we just ask that you leave the personal chat there to a minimum. At the top of the hour, I'll both answer questions and talk about our Wednesday class, our Cafe Oleh Conversations on Wednesday, and tell you about next week's class, which I'm actually going to start talking about sooner than the top of the hour, because it has very much to do with today's class, which is a review of slang. Slang, as I talked about last week, is an integral part of any language, whether it's an old one like Hebrew, a newer one, has gone through multiple developments, has different accents, or maybe just one accent. Slang is the vanguard of a language. It's the moment a language starts evolving and developing and creating new words that sometimes go totally against what we are taught in school, in formal education, how a language works. And sometimes that's how a language evolves. There are plenty of examples of that in English and in other languages. Today, we're focusing obviously on Hebrew. Now, we don't have the time to go through all the slang there is in Hebrew. We've gone over Hebrew slang multiple times in the past. And again, always an encouragement to look at our YouTube channel. We've gone over the major origins of slang. We've gone over sample sentences and all sorts of different ones. Today, we're going to look at some choice words, both that we've reviewed before and some new ones. We're going to look at some sample sentences. We're going to look at one that is found in popular media here in Israel, and how this all revolves around next week's class, how important that is. So with that, I'm going to get started. If you have a question about a specific word of slang that I don't cover, you're welcome to write it in either the Q&A or the chat. I just ask if I don't get to yours during the Q&A, if you can write it in the chat and include your email address. So I'll be happy to get back to you with questions about that if I don't have the right resources for you or I don't get the chance to answer it. I want to help as many of you, of course, as possible. With that, let's get started. So we open up today's spreadsheet. Okay, so first off, in terms of slang, slang in Hebrew comes from a number of different places. We've talked about these before. The major sources of slang in Hebrew, in no specific order, come from Jewish tradition and Jewish communities, the military, because that's a big part of everyday life here in Israel, foreign, particularly American influence, because American culture is such an important influence on Israeli society and has been for many years. And our neighbors, in our neighborhood more specifically, both because Israel is 20% native Arabic speaking and also because the majority of Jews who immigrated to Israel, or at least currently here, come from Arabic speaking countries. So a big portion of slang is derived from Arabic, also from other languages that Jews spoken throughout the world, be it Russian or English or French or Spanish or other Jewish languages, like I mentioned, as well as subcultures within Israeli society, be that teenagers, LGBT, religious, non-religious, kibbutz members, city dwellers, Tel Avivim, all sorts of different communities create slang that's then understood on a mainstream level through all sorts of different ways. We don't have enough time to talk about anthropology and sociology, much less linguistics here. Let's just get into it. So as always, the Hebrew is going to be in the middle of the spreadsheet, transliteration on the right, English on the left, any notes, but we're going to go through it together. So hopefully everything will be understood. If you have any questions, again, Q&A is your friend. I'm only going to be looking at the Q&A, not the chat. With that, let's get started. So first, we're going to start with some slang we've gone over before. And when I call this slang is that it comes from Hebrew, and it has an entirely different meaning in everyday standardized Hebrew. The verb ba, bet aleph. Bet aleph in Hebrew means to come, C-O-M-E. Matai ta ba lemesiba. When are you coming to the party, right? But in slang, when you say bali, or any derivative of that, because you can conjugate the li depending on who you're talking to, it means I feel like, right? I feel like, bali. If I want to say I feel like ice cream, bali grida. There are plenty of other ways to say that, folks. Please don't come after me in the comments. That's why this is called slang. Today is all about slang. Even if you're not going to use these terms, you're going to hear these terms all the time. And I'm going to even show you a clip that expresses that. Excuse me. Voice? Bali. Bali means I feel like. Bali glida. Huh? The opposite, of course, is lo bali, right? In Hebrew, it's very easy to negate. We simply put lo most of the times in front of a verb and we get the negation. In this case, lo bali. I don't feel like. Lo bali glida. Kal bachutz. I don't feel like ice cream. It's cold outside, right? And then finally, if you want to ask someone, what do you feel like, right? Remember I said that li can change. So it means, so if you want to ask someone, what do you feel like? In this case to a female, ma balach, right? What do you feel like? Ma balach, right? That li changes the declension of that preposition, depending on who you're speaking to or about. Okay. So if you were to fill this out, you just put in whatever you feel like or don't feel like, or you're going to ask, what do you feel like? Okay. A similar formed expression, but meaning something different, is magia lacha. It can also be magia li, it can be magia lo, and so forth. But magia lacha means you deserve, or you deserve it. What's important here, and you're going to see that in the example that I give in just a minute, magia lacha can mean you deserve it both positively and negatively, right? Context and tone are always important in Hebrew, just like they are in other languages. This is no exception, right? If I want to say in a positive way, wow, good job, you deserve all the, you deserve the prize you got, right? I can say magia lacha, kol hakavod, magia lacha. Increasingly, though, magia lacha and its derivatives, magia li and so forth, is a negative term. Like, you got it coming to you, right? Or karma is fill in the blank, right? It's that type of expression, like you had it coming in a bad way, not the other expression we just had. This is magia lacha. Magia in everyday Hebrew means arrives, right? Similar in meaning and use like ba, but in this case, it means you deserve. You deserve it, you deserve. Okay. So, for example, I have an example sentence here. We're going to talk about this also in a few weeks from now. We're going to talk about this in a few weeks from now when we go over how to complain. This is a great thing you would say after complaining. סוף סוף, השכנים קיבלו דוח על הרעש שנוצר אצלם. מגיע להם. סוף סוף, finally, השכנים, the neighbors, קיבלו, received דוח. דוח is a report, but it's also a fine, a ticket. על הרעש שנוצר אצלם, on the noise coming from their place. Well-deserved, מגיע להם, right? Well-deserved is one way to translate it, or they had it coming, another way to translate it. Both ways understanding, you had it coming, right? You deserve everything you got because of what you did, right? There is a result, there is a cause and effect. Okay? Magia lacha. Again, That can change, magia li, magia lecha, depending on who you're speaking to. All right, let's look at some more classics. Put that space here. The expressions yesh matzav and ein matzav. Okay, yesh matzav and ein matzav. Matzav in Hebrew, everyday Hebrew, means a situation, right? If someone talks about hamatzav, they're not just talking about the situation, they're usually talking about the current security situation. During the second intifada, we called, instead of saying ha'intifada shniya, which number one is long, but it also conjured up a lot of trauma and PTSD for people, it was simply referred to as hamatzav, the situation. Even the war that goes on today, we call hamatzav oftentimes, because it's just too much to call it anything else. So it's just easy to call it this bland, the situation, right? Yesh matzav in slang means there's a chance. We've talked about this expression before, which is why we're reviewing it. Review is always good. Yesh matzav. Yesh matzav literally translates to there is a situation, but that's not what this means. And be very clear, folks, when we talk about slang, oftentimes what it literally looks like is not how it actually is meant or used. This is a great example. Yesh matzav means there's a chance, meaning from 1% to 100%, whatever you want to say. So for example, if I wanted to say to you, let's put an example here. יש מצב שתהיה פנוי לדרינק הערב לדרינק. Okay, let me spell that again. יש מצב, is there a chance? יש מצב, write this as we're doing it, שתהיה פנוי לדרינק הערב. יש מצב שתהיה פנוי לדרינק הערב? Is there a chance that you will be free for a drink this evening? יש מצב שתהיה, that you will be פנוי, free or available, לדרינק, for a drink, הערב, this evening. Is there a chance that you'll be free for a drink this evening? Right? That's what this means. Okay? יש מצב שתהיה פנוי. You can both ask it, and then you can answer, כן, יש מצב. Yeah, there's a chance, meaning from 1% to 100%, there's a chance it could happen. The opposite, and this is not as ambiguous as 1 to 100%, is ein matzav. Ein matzav, literally, there is no situation, is 0%. If someone answers, sorry, ein matzav, slicha, ein matzav, sorry, ein matzav, there's no chance. That's 0%. Understood. Yesh matzav and ein matzav. Are they complete opposites? Not entirely, because yesh matzav can be, maybe I'm free, or it could be absolutely I'm free. Ein matzav is no chance. There is a chance, no chance. Yesh matzav, ein matzav. Okay, let's move on to one of the most requested. I'm sure I've already have 5, if not all 11 people in the Q&A asking this question. What does kapara mean? We've gone over kapara multiple times. No judgments. We have gone over it before. Always important to review. Kapara is a very popular term of endearment in modern Hebrew, and it is entirely slang. First off, folks, we've talked about this before. We are teaching here modern Hebrew, not biblical Hebrew, not prayer Hebrew, not Talmudic Hebrew, not the Hebrew that you likely learned, like I learned in Sunday school or in day school. We're teaching modern Hebrew. I know when you see this word and you see even the transliteration, many of you in your minds are thinking, this is the word I know from the High Holy Days, right? Jay, doesn't that mean atonement? And why is it a term of endearment? Stop right there. Modern Hebrew here, all the other forms of Hebrew over here. Are there connections? 100%, but we're only talking about modern Hebrew. In this case, Kapara comes back into modern Hebrew, not just through biblical Hebrew and liturgy Hebrew, but through specifically the Jewish communities of North Africa, and more specifically, Moroccan Hebrew. Moroccan Hebrew is a combination of the local Arabic dialect and Hebrew, just like Jewish languages exist around the world, from Yiddish to Ladino, so too in the Middle East. Some could also say in North America as well, other countries as well, and cultures for sure. Kapara, first off, listen to how it's pronounced. This is not atonement, which in modern Hebrew would be kapara. Okay, remember, we've talked about this before, and we have multiple lessons on this. In modern Hebrew, the stress is on the last syllable. That is a major component of what makes modern Hebrew modern. The stress is almost always on the last syllable. This is kapara, which already tells you, because it's on the penultimate syllable, that this is not modern Hebrew. Rather, this is Hebrew coming from a different route or from a different source. In this case, it comes from Moroccan Hebrew and the Moroccan Jewish community that has an expression, if I pronounce it correctly, and forgive me if I don't, it's nimshi kapara alek, which basically means I would walk in your shoes, which is the idea that then connects to its older version, meaning I love you so much that I am willing to stand in your place and take on atoning for your sins. Okay, so in that respect, yes, it's connected to the word for atonement. However, that is not the word we're talking about here. Kapara is a term of endearment, such as in the example here. Kama ani ohev otach, or otcha, depending who you're speaking to, kapara sheli. Right, we have a lot of different ways of saying, you can simply say kapara, you can say kapara sheli, my dear, my sweetheart, my whatever. You can say kapara alai or kapara alecha, which is the original expression from the Moroccan community. Any of these are understood so long as the emphasis, and listen again, the stress, kapara, second syllable stress, not the last syllable. Okay, kapara, term of endearment, sweetie, sweetheart, honey, baby, all those words is kapara. Okay. Hope we got that clear. It is a positive word, is a term of endearment. Let's move on. Not quite kapara, but also coming from a similar origin, like many of our words tonight, or many words in general, as I said before, is Arabic. In this case, ma'afan. Ma'afan is one of the many words we have in modern Hebrew to mean disgusting, gross, repulsive, anything like that. What makes this stand out is also how you pronounce it. If you can pronounce ayin, not just as a regular but as the other standardized form in Hebrew and also in other Middle Eastern languages like ayin, you really put some more oomph into it. So if you can say ma'afan, it sounds even more dramatic. But just using the word ma'afan is also good. It is not a curse word. We only have one curse word tonight, and I translated it so it wasn't beyond PG-13 for our viewers tonight. And this is not one of them. Ma'afan, disgusting. Ta'amtem et hachadash shel. Have you tasted blank's new product? Not to get in trouble with Israeli companies because there are very strict libel laws in Israel. Ta'amtem et hachadash shel. This is the way you would ask, by the way, anything about a new product, right? Not using the word product. It's understood here, and you see in English, right? Have you tasted so-and-so's new product? Ta'amtem et hachadash shel. Fill in the blank of not the name of the product, but the company that produces it. And then before I let them answer, pashut ta'am ma'afan. It's simply disgusting. It has a disgusting taste. Pashut, simply, ta'am, taste, ma'afan, disgusting. Okay. Great use of the word ma'afan. Ma'afan does not conjugate. It does not really have a declension. You will hear people say ma'afna, but it really does not have a declension. Does not conjugate. Okay. Great word, ma'afan. A newer word, sumi. Sumi is a shortened form of the Hebrew sumet lev. Sumet lev means attention. Lasim lev is to pay attention. right? Sumet lev is attention. Not attention like standing at attention, attention paid to something or someone. Sumi as slang, right? You can hear it. Sumet lev, taf, seeing, so forth, turns into sumi. Okay? Sumi, when it's used in the right context, means self-centered attention. Someone who's really self-absorbed, right? There, as you see in the expression here. First off, the expression ani lo sovel. It is not slang, but it's a very good expression to have, especially when you're trying to offer an opinion. Ani lo sovel oto. Sovel, coming from the verb lisbol, means to suffer. Okay? Literally to suffer. Yes, it's related to the words it's related to the words sablanut, patience, and sovlanut, tolerance. But the verb lisbol is also related to the word sevel, pain, right? Ani lo soveloto, literally, I don't suffer him, meaning I can't stand him, right? If you want to say that you can't stand someone, ani lo sovel, and then fill in the blank. Okay. Ani lo soveloto, rak mechapes tsumi. He's only looking for attention. Okay? That's what it means. Rak mechapes tsumi. He's only looking for attention. He's only looking for attention focused on him. Okay. Sumi. You'll see this a lot, by the way. This is a much more generation-minded word. So millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha will use this term to say, for example, Shaletzalem latsumi. Can you take a picture of me for the tsumi, for the attention, right? The idea is that they're going to get their picture taken and uploaded on some social media platform. That's how this term is used more often in the context of social media or in general, just trying to get some attention for yourself, not for someone else. That's a different word in slang. Sumi, however, is for yourself. Maybe I'll include the other one if someone asks. Just want to be sure, just 1 second before we continue. Okay, let's keep going here. All right, so we did sumi. Let's do one that we've already done in the past. Ta. And this isn't ta, it's actually ta. It's a more explosive sound, excuse me. Ta. Ta is either a contraction of the pronoun ata, you singular masculine, or it's a contraction of et ha. Et, as you remember, before direct object. Ha is the equivalent of the in Hebrew. So ta is a way that we contract in Hebrew. Hebrew doesn't have many contractions, for example, like in English does, particularly in American English, right? Can't, don't, I'd, won't, all those words. Hebrew doesn't have as many. This is an exception, and it's really only in slang. You would never use this outside of spoken Hebrew and in very casual contexts. And then another word that's going to go with it is our PG-13 word of the night. If this is offensive to people, this is your chance to mute. Although, honestly, folks, bad words exist. I don't put judgment on them. I'm not teaching you all the bad words tonight because we don't want to get into issues with YouTube. But however, this is a word that you will hear. And this expression you'll hear all the time. It's good to know it and then decide if you want to use it. Is the expression, slang expression, charagil, or charagil, or charagil. Charagil is a play on the expression, right here, kiragil. We did this word a couple weeks ago when we talked about words that either sound like English or have actual English origins. In the case of the word ragil, ragil in Hebrew is a regular Hebrew word, and it sounds like the word regular. Ragil, regular. It happens to be a total coincidence. This word has been around for thousands of years. Ragil in modern Hebrew also means regular or normal. The expression kiragil, as regular, means as usual. Hakol kiragil, everything's usual. However, if you say charagil, you're playing on kiragil and you're introducing the word chara. I'm translating it here as crappy. take that as you will. I think you're all adult enough to understand what I mean when I say that. You can translate it, of course, as crappy as usual. Chara plus ragil, charagil. You're having a bad day, you're having a series of bad days. If you're talking about the current situation or anything else, it's understood. When you say charagil, it's not everything as usual. It may be everything as usual, but it's crappy as usual, or a word that begins with S. I'll leave that to your imagination. Okay, that's what this means. Charagil. Chara does indeed mean crap, or more importantly, the S word. Charagil is a great expression if you're in that mood, right? For example, if we put these two together, hey, ma kore? Hey, what's up? Ta yodea charagil, right? First off, that contraction ta, tayodea. Tayodea stands for atayodea. Instead of saying atayodea, because we've talked about this many times before, Hebrew prefers smaller words, fewer letters, fewer syllables. So instead of atayodea, you can say tayodea. Tayodea charagil. Yeah, you know, as you would say in English, crappy as usual. That's an example of using both of these at the same time. And then finally, before I go to an example of this one and answer your questions and talk about next week's class by giving you an example, this one has an audio component. So this word is pronounced two different ways, and it has a different meaning. Usually, it's understood in context, and you don't have to worry so much about the which syllable you're emphasizing because it's about context. Mistalbet or mistalbet. Usually you're going to hear mistalbet or some version of that, stalbet or histalbet or something along those lines. Mistalbet means both kidding around, like joking with you, or chilling out. I don't like the term chilling out because that's also slang. What I mean by that is relaxing, doing absolutely nothing, or taking it easy is a better way to think about it. I'm actually going to write that here, taking it easy. Right? Another word of Arabic origin, but like our other ones, it doesn't mean that originally in Arabic. In modern Hebrew, in slang, it does mean, however, taking it easy. And so what I give you here is not a sentence I made up, but the lyrics of a very popular and now famous song, and we're going to watch a few lines of it in their music video. And this is the beginning of the chorus. כמה זה לחוץ, אז למה עיר? סטלבט בקיבוץ בחצי מחיר. Right? כמה זה לחוץ? It's so tense. לחוץ is pressured, so it can mean tense. כמה זה לחוץ? It's so tense. אז למה עיר? So why live in a city? Right? In literal Hebrew, it's not including those words, but that's the implication here. It's so tense here, so why live in a city? Meaning Israel. Stalbet b'kibbutz, chilling out or taking it easy b'kibbutz, on a kibbutz, b'chatzi mechil, at half the price of living in a city. But this is the chorus of a song that was written and released 2 years ago that got pretty good success. But because the nature of the song, which is called Stalbet b'kibbutz, taking it easy on a kibbutz, it has extra meaning after October 7th. And it has gotten played even more so since October 7th, mainly because the location of where, not one of the reasons, the location of where the music video was shot is Kibbutz Ruchama. Kibbutz Ruchama is in the south of Israel. It's currently housing many of the survivors of Kibbutz Kfar Aza, which is one of the kibbutzim that is completely destroyed, almost completely destroyed in the south of Israel. And so it takes on extra meaning, the idea of this idyllic life, this ideal life that kibbutzim still has in Israeli society, but after October 7th, obviously has a different meaning. So we're going to watch, just listen to it, and that word stalbet, and you're going to see stalbet happening on the screen. I'm going to talk about one other thing regarding words in Hebrew and then answer your questions. So first off, let me open that up. Yeah, oh yeah. There you go. Sound. Okay, let's put it in the chat. Okay, there are subtitles at the bottom of the screen, and obviously I will send you this clip as well so you can watch and listen to the whole song. Okay, the song is by a guy named Jimbo J, no relation, rapper, but this is, as you can see, a very idyllic life, and you'll see them act it out.
כמה זה לחוץ אז למה אם סתלבט בקיבוץ בחצי מחיר אני לא עובד קשה בשביל להיות עשיר לא מחפש כפיים אם זה לא בסופה כמה זה לחוץ אז למה אם סתלבט בקיבוץ בחצי מחיר אני לא עובד קשה בשביל להיות עשיר לא מחפש כפיים אם זה לא בסוף השיר לא רוצה לריב על חנייה למה לי לגור בתוך התבנייה? תן לי מיקרופון וגופייה יאללה ג'ימבו, קח אותי לפטריה יאללה, תשביל פה
Right. The whole song is about escaping the stress of everyday life, and how ideal it would be to live on a kibbutz. Stalbet Kibbutz is the name of the song. Like I said, it's filmed in Kibbutz Ulchama 2 years ago. Now a very different situation in kibbutzim in general, trying to rebuild themselves, especially in the north and the south, but especially Kibbutz Ulchama. Before I answer your questions, I want to share one thing that leads to next week's topic. So next week, we have what I think is one of our most important lessons that we've done in the past, and we're going to do again, is centered around something called Yom HaIvrit. Yom HaIvrit literally translates to Hebrew Day. It is the day celebrating, or it's the day commemorating the birthday of Eliezer ben Yehuda. Eliezer ben Yehuda was one of the pioneers who helped bring back Hebrew to everyday use and transformed it into modern Hebrew, right? Hebrew has gone through many phases through life. Modern Hebrew was already being developed by other people. Eliezer ben Yehuda is very much seen in Israeli society and in the history of the Hebrew language as the singular guy who really helped push forward using it in everyday life, turn of the 20th century, leading into the 20th century, creating new words, creating a culture that used Hebrew exclusively, no longer just for prayer or for trade in between Jewish communities, but everyday language, including words we never had before, including situations that we didn't have before. And as a result, on that day, there are a lot of different celebrations happening, which is next week. One of those is put on by the Academy for the Hebrew Language, and they have every year a contest of Ma Tiyeh Milat Hashana. What will be the word of the year? Okay. And the idea is that every year, just like in other languages, think of like the Oxford Dictionary, things like that, there's a word that has been picked by citizens or by a specific panel that exemplifies that year in passing. Okay. This year, you're going to see the options. Instead of throwing them all in, the word is going to be chosen as it says, Hamilah Hazocha Tuchraz Beyom HaIvrit. The word, the winning word will be announced on Yom HaIvrit, on the day of Hebrew, on Hebrew Day, Kaf Aleph B'Tevet, the 21st of Tevet, the 21st of Yanuar. Okay. And so here are the words that are optional. And I'll send you, of course, this link that you can choose them. You'll understand very quickly what the theme is of this year and what the different words are. So before I get to your questions, let me just quickly explain these to you so you can also choose what you think the word of the year should be. So first off, we'll go from right to left, top to bottom. Achrayut, responsibility. Bait, house. Gvura, bravery. Utar lefilsum. It's permitted to announce. This is the term that's used anytime on the news before something bad happened, particularly soldiers or civilians killed or murdered since October 7th. Utar lefilsum. Chatufim, kidnapped. Yachad, together. Katbam, UAV, an unmanned aerial vehicle. We've talked about this word. Kefesa. Fesa is a step. A step. Kefesa is an expression that was first used by the prime minister to explain back, I believe it was last spring or summer, that we are kefesa mi nitzachon muchlat. We are just a step away from total victory. That was a year and some ago. Miluim, reserves, and atzimut, intensity. Okay, so these are the words from which you're going to pick which one you think is the word of the year. Next week, it'll be announced. In past, it's been things like, for example, during Corona, the word was matosh, which is a swab. No one knew what a swab was before Corona, and that became the word of the year, and so forth. So it's a great way to be part of developing the Hebrew language together by picking what is the word of the year. The Academy of the Hebrew Language, as we've talked about, is the standardizing body for the modern Hebrew language. It comes with a lot of controversy. It creates words that sometimes are not adopted. One of the biggest questions this has is, wait a minute, your name in Hebrew is Ha'akademia LaLashon Ivrit. Why don't you have a Hebrew word for academy? Still a question to be answered by them. Let's look at your questions in the Q&A. This is a last chance. If you ask me questions in the chat, I will only be looking at the Q&A. I'm going to stop in a little bit and talk to you about next week's class. I'm actually going to do that right now. Apropos the Academy for the Hebrew Language and Word of the Year, next week, we are going to be talking about new words in Hebrew. Okay, just like we looked at slang today, next week we're going to look at how words are literally created in Hebrew. The moment of Genesis in the Hebrew language, how a word is created. What are the building blocks of every Hebrew word? And then, not to play too much with biology terms or that, how do we create new words? How can you, even learning Hebrew at any level you're at, any 326 of you on this call, how can you create a new word in Hebrew that, more importantly, it's not about creating a word, it's about that you'll be understood by any Hebrew speaker in Israel, much less around the world. We're going to talk about both of those things next week. We've talked about this before. It's a great review, especially in honor of Yom HaIvrit next week. How do we create new words? How does the Academia create new words? And how can you at home create new words that will be completely understood? 90 to 95% of the time. There's a really, once you understand it, you understand how the Hebrew language works. Definitely tune in next week. Let's look at some questions in the Q&A. When someone knocks on your door in America, you say, who's there? What is the equivalent in Hebrew? That's a question, not necessarily about slang. Hello, is way, or shalom. Either one works. Hello or shalom. But the chances of a random person knocking on your door, not so frequent, especially if you live in an apartment that has a code on the door. Hopefully you do. The door is locked, but those are two ways to do it. What are the slang expressions I'd like explained? Kastach and padas. Those are some, wow. Apropos Chavagim. Kastach stands for kisui tachat. Kisui is cover. Tachat is your backside. Kisui tachat, or the acronym written here, kastach, means covering your backside, covering your ass. Padas, Padas, there's a couple ones. I don't know which one you mean. The one that immediately comes to mind is also not so great. Partsuf shedoresh stira. Face that deserves a stira. Interesting words. Thank you for asking those. I thought li and lach were only for verb to have. Great question. Incorrect. In Hebrew, remember, we do not have a verb that literally translates as to have, right? If you want to say in Hebrew, I have something, right? You have to say, I'll make it bigger in a second, folks. Right? We have to use two things. We have to, let me just make this bigger because I can't even see this. We have to use two words. Yesh, and then the preposition le, conjugated. Yesh means there is. Li means to me or for me in everyday Hebrew. Put these two together, yesh li, literally there is to me, I have. Okay? Yesh li, I have. Oh, that didn't work. I have. Li and all its conjugations, li, lecha, lach, lo, la, lanu, lachem, lachem, lahem, lahen, are used all the time in Hebrew. They simply mean to or for. We use this all the time. Can you open the door for me? Can you open this can for me? Right? Again and again. Li is simply a preposition. It is not a verb. And yeshli is there is to me. There is no verb literally happening in there. Great question. What is meant by calling someone neshama, my soul? What does it mean when you call someone that in English? What do you call them? My soul, my heart, my life. Another term of endearment, right? Neshama, soul. Literally my soul. Figuratively my soul, excuse me. Is there any future past tense for Bali? Nope. It's a great question. Bali is not conjugated for tense. It stays as it is. In fact, ba does not conjugate. If I wanted to say, she feels like ice cream. Ba la glida. Ba does not conjugate. The only thing that changes is that preposition le. So can you use matzav in place of sikui for any sentence? No, you cannot. Sikui is everyday Hebrew. Sikui means chance. Great question. Sikui means chance. Matzav is slang. Matzav literally means situation in Hebrew. Yesh matzav is slang. Yesh sikui is not slang. Yesh sikui means there is a chance in everyday Hebrew. Yesh matzav means there is a chance in slang Hebrew. What if I said lo matzav? That would be incorrect. First off, even in regular Hebrew, that'd be incorrect. Matzav is a noun. Okay? Lo means no and is used in front of to negate a verb. If you want to negate the existence of a noun, we use the word ein. There isn't. Just as we used yesh before, ein is the opposite. There isn't. Right? You would say, for example, to say to you all right now, ein shiurei bait, right? There's no homework. I can't say lo shiurei bait. That is incorrect Hebrew. Immediately red flags. I'm a beginner Hebrew and I haven't been taught correctly, in which case you should come after me, rightly so. Ein shiurei bait means there is no homework. There isn't homework, right? Very important difference. Thanks for asking. While a drink, we talked about that before. We're talking about slang, folks. I said English is an important part and contribution to it. Le drink is a common way, at least here in Tel Aviv, we ask someone for a drink. Why not lishtot? Because I said for a drink, right? I didn't say to drink. That's a very important distinction, folks. In the sentence I gave you as an example, I said, Yesh matzav shetia panui ledrink ha'erev. Remember what I just said, that le as a preposition means to and for. Is there a chance you'll be free for a drink this evening? What if I want to ask you out for coffee? Rotze lipagesh, do you want to meet up? Le café. Not to drink coffee or to make coffee, for coffee. Le means to and for. If your Hebrew teacher taught you only to, they're wrong. Great question. I was once told my machshev was ma'afan, in that it was broken. Is this the same word we are using for disgusting? Yes. Ma'afan is a bad word in the sense that it's negative. If someone called your machshev ma'afan, I like that. It means it's broken, it's in disrepair. Think of something disgusting. It's not in good shape. That's the idea here. In Hanan Ben Ari's song, he says, Kapara ala kol. What does that really mean? Kapara ala kol, right? I love everything. Everything is, I don't know the exact lyric, but Kapara al hakol translates to everyone is sweetheart, or I love everyone in very generic terms. It's a positive thing to say. Would you, when you use kapara for a little boy, don't use kapara for a little boy. Let me stop you here. Kapara you don't use on total strangers. Any term of endearment, even though it may feel like Israelis really let loose with the terms of endearment, the fact that our verb for to like also means to love, it may feel like we're a little too cutesy poo and mushy with people. You don't use this with complete strangers. So number one, if they're a complete stranger, don't use the term kapara. You can use other terms like yeled, simply boy. You can say, if they are actually sweet, you can say motek or matok. Kapara is another level. Okay, let me just put that out there. Kapara also has sociological bearings. Kapara, as I said, comes from North African Jewish communities. It's not that if you are Ashkenazi or of other backgrounds, you can't use the term, but it is a term of endearment, meaning that you have some endearment for someone. And you would just simply say kapara. Don't worry about all the other ways to use it. Kapara sheli, kapara alecha. Just simply say kapara, and you're good to go. I grew up with Yiddish-speaking parents. They use the term kapura for the same meaning. Great, wonderful. That's really good to hear. The term, as it's used in modern Hebrew, happens to be in origin from Moroccan Jews, but it's good to know that also Ashkenazim use it. Some Ashkenazim use it in a similar way. How come ma'afan has a dot in the middle of the pay if it's pronounced with the F sound? That's a great question. The answer is because slang is not a standardized thing, right? It's the vanguard of a language, and my automatic nikud generator does not like the word ma'afan. It likes it in every respect except that dagish, which I'm going to take out now so you don't see it. But the word is indeed ma'afan, because remember, this word is Arabic in origin. In Arabic, there is no natural sound in the existing vocabulary that is the sound p. You have to create it out of letters. Ma'afan. Mistalbet. Is there a direct or indirect object like you are kidding me? Great question. Mistalbet alai. Mistalbet alai means like, are you playing around with me? Are you playing on me? Great question. You will hear that. Mistalbet alai, mistalbet alecha. Stam mistalbet alecha. I'm just kidding around. But when we use it as in the context of the music video, we saw it means to chill out, to take it easy. What's the difference between magil and ma'afan? Magil is Hebrew, ma'afan is Arabic. They both mean disgusting. Magil is actual Hebrew, though. Ma'afan is slang Hebrew. Don't Israelis just use stam for kidding around? Don't we have multiple words to mean good? Guess what? You have multiple ways to kid around in Hebrew. Stam is another way to say it. Mistalbet is another. Minajes is another. You have lots of other ones. We have a small amount of Hebrew, but that doesn't mean we don't have other words and synonyms in Hebrew, the Hebrew language. Is kol kach the same as kama? No, kama means how much, and in the context of kama ni ohev otach or otcha, that means think of it like how much I love you, right? Kol kach is so much. How much? So much. Any other examples of conjugating besides ta? There really aren't, and that aren't as common as ta. Ta is the one you're going to hear the most. It's a great question, but we really don't have a lot of forms of contractions, excuse me, not conjugations, contractions. For these 10 words in the links for this week's session, yes, you're getting a copy of the spreadsheet. Don't worry. What was last year's word? I don't remember off the top of my head. Let me actually quickly find out. Last year's words, Milat Hashana 2023 was, no, I don't want ish. Last year was Bol'an. Bol'an is a, oh man, I can't believe we forgot the word in Hebrew, in English. Bol'an is a, it comes from livloa, to swallow. Bol'an is a not quicksand, but it's a hole that quickly opens in the ground. It's a term. לאורך כל השבוע ההצבעה התחלנו בולען ומשילות. Bol'an is a hole that quickly opens in the ground. I forget the whole reason why it was picked, but that was the word for last year. This year, as you saw, those are the options. Is the word for chill out a verb? And if so, which binyan? It's slang and it's from Arabic. So to call it a verb is a little bit of a stretch. Is it conjugated? Very little. Usually only in the present tense and usually only in the singular sense. But so it takes on the vowel pattern of hitpael, but I don't want to really stress that because you don't really conjugate that verb in full. How do I get a copy of the chart from today, folks? I'm glad this is your first time joining, but you always get a copy, not just of the spreadsheet, but all the links and all the different documents we go over. Don't worry, got you covered. Yatsali, it turned out for me, is another way to say this. Yatsati. Great question. Yatsali is slang. Yatsali, it became for me. Yatsa means to go out. Okay, it means to go out. Latset is to go out. That could be to go out of a house, to go out on a date. Latset la date, or simply latset. Ata rotze latset. Do you want to go out? Right, meaning i.e. on a date. Yatsa li is slang. Yatsa li, or simply yatsa, can mean also became. Okay, great question. Isn't goal nefesh another way of saying disgusting? It absolutely is. Thank you for pointing out a synonym for a word that we went over. Again, folks, I'm not a human dictionary. The point of this is not to go over the 500 different ways in modern Hebrew to use terms of endearment. I'm pointing out specific ones that if it brings to your mind other ones, amazing. That's really good to hear. If one stubs a toe on a table leg, what is the expression yelled in pain? I think people are very creative with that, just like they are in English. I leave that to you. A lot of those I probably can't say because this is going to be taped for YouTube, and we want to have, we don't have any parental guidance put on it. Please shut up, how to say that. That's not so much slang, but we'll talk about that perhaps when we have a complaint. I would like to say, I would like to drink coffee. Esmach lishtot kafeh is the simple way to say that. But if you'd like to meet someone for coffee, esmach lifgosh or lihipagesh le kafeh. I'd love to meet up or to meet for coffee. Le is both to and for in Hebrew. Mabsut for satisfied, another great slang word coming from Arabic. Instead of kapara, what can we use to a man who has been nice doing something for you? Great question. You can say atat totach, literally you're a cannon, meaning you're wonderful for doing that. You're the best, but literally you're a cannon. Atat totach. Ata maxim. You are one of those words that means amazing. In this case, maxim literally means enchanting, but it means you're incredible. Ata magniv. In other words, captivating, but also you're amazing. Ata eser. You're a 10 out of a 10. Ein alecha. Literally, there isn't on you or about you, meaning no one else is like you. A lot of great ways to say it that don't have the term of endearment that kapara has. These are much more romantic, emotional feelings, neutral terms, right? You're not implying anything. Kapara is you really care for someone. That's a different meaning than those other ones I just gave. Chavara azman, I like the slang meaning delicious, a great term. We've gone over it before, but it's a great one. Sinkhole, that's what a bol'an is. Great. Thank you for everyone who, wow, 10, 15 people telling me what bol'an was. Great. We're voting on 2024 right now. Remember, it's January. We're voting on last year's words, right? The word that sums up the year. So that's why those words sounded the way they were. How about gevil gevil? Gevil gevil is you could say is a gevil ata. What a man you are. Gevil gevil is like a manly man, which let's not get into perceptions of masculinity in Israeli society. Gevil gevil though is a great one. With that, we're at the top of the hour. First off, Todah Rabah, thank you all for joining. It wasn't clear already. Spreadsheet, the music video, the word of the year contest, all of that will be sent to you. Wednesday's class, we are going to be using these terms we just did and all of your other favorite slang words that you shared and have not yet shared in conversation. So you're going to be able to practice the ones we have, other words that you already know in our conversation group. Highly recommend any of you who have not yet joined us to join us for Wednesday's class. 8 p.m. Israel time, also free. Sign up is on the Nefesh B'Nefesh website. Next week, we're going to be talking all about how to spot and create new words in Hebrew from Genesis, how to create words from absolute scratch and have them be completely understood. Until then, the copy of this class will go up on YouTube in the next day or two. Toda rabah, thank you all very much. Besorot tovot, may we only have good news, and lihitot. See you all very soon.